my background before I started doing art as a career was as a graphic designer. In the black and white early work and in this work, it's always been important to me to have the work be accessible to anybody. Yeah, so this is what people both expect from me, and hopefully over time, when they see a piece here and they see a piece there, they start to know who you are. I mean, does my work have a social agenda, like to change the world in some little way? Mm-hmm. Not really. Mm-hmm. I try to keep in this work is always the quirkiness of it, some of the weird things that happen, or kind of the oddness of it, is very specific to me. My previous body of work was still photographs that had paintings placed in them, and you saw those. And I had I was in a group show at Catherine Edelman Gallery here in town. It was my first gallery show, and it wasn't representation or anything yet. She likes to show local artists each summer. And she gave me a good spot in the show. She really liked that work. And it turned out I couldn't be at the show. So I'm like, crap, But the other thing I had to do was important career-wise also. And so I thought, what can I do? And, brainstorming with friends and stuff, sort of came upon this idea of doing a life-size cutout of myself that was a painting. So I did a painting of myself like this, with my hands in front of me. And I'm like in jeans and, a nice jacket for the opening. And I made the hands a video, so there was a cutout in the painting itself and a video screen put right there. I'll sit back down in a second. And then the hands hold up little cards that have idle gallery chatter on them. The piece was pretty much silent, but so it would say like, "Hi, glad you can make it," or another time I validated punching cards, and then I went through my mail like this, and I filed my nails, and it just does my hands did all these things while this painting's just standing there in the gallery space for the opening. So it's just this cutout surrogate of me at the opening, and we sold it opening night to a guy whose parents were two of the most prominent photo collectors in Chicago. The Art Institute's photo wing is named after them, and so I knew, and the gallery knew, there was something going on with the video combined with the painting. But the piece was basically invented sort of for a situation, Parameters can be good for a project. The more you're boxed in, the more you have to invent to get kind of out of the box and understand what you're doing, or come up with something that's interesting. And I actually went back to school shortly after that to get a graduate degree in photography. And while I was there, part of the goal was to play around with video more, learn how to edit it, learn how to do things. I mean, that first piece was like naive art, kind of. It was, I never edited a piece of video. I didn't even own a video camera. And so in grad school, I played around with video, and again, I was kind of stuck for what to do for my show. And I'd always my work always kind of referenced art a little bit, like paintings and photographs. It was kind of talking about the art world as much as it was the scene that you were looking at. And sort of came across this idea of what if, you make art, basically it was the idea is, can you make art move? Can you make a painting move? And I played around with putting video screens in actual paintings some more, putting video and photographs, and came upon the idea of making it all sort of stick together by putting it into gallery spaces and museum spaces. That is, this piece, the Hopper piece, is the actual wall where the Nighthawks usually hangs in the Art Institute. That's the real space. And then we built a set for the video that mimics the Art Institute space. So the video is a set, but the big photo is an actual still photograph. And that piece is the Cleveland Art Museum. And there I was just looking I knew what I wanted to do with, an old gallery of statues and a contemporary gallery with the Love sculpture. And so I needed a space that let me juxtapose those two images. And I found it at the Cleveland Art Museum and set up, in both those cases I set up appointments to go in there with a tripod and set my camera up and, take a good photograph. But for this video work, I don't really have the luxury to sort of wander around looking for accidental good things out there in the world. It's, I'm trying to reference an artist or type of art. I need to have pretty fair control over the scene. Like, everything is shot on a tripod. The set, or when I'm building a set, before anything is done, the camera is on a tripod that never moves for the next 6 weeks. It goes on the tripod, and as the set gets built, we do still images and scenes of, carrying in walls and stuff, and then film the scenes that are going to happen in that space. And the camera, it doesn't move.
Oh, wow.
And because you couldn't do this work with anything handheld, because it wouldn't make sense anymore if the image was kind of going like this in the frame. It's like, what sense would that make? It would sort of shatter the illusion. Wow. So what you have here, I'm using mostly TVs now. So what you have is 2 TVs. And you see we took the front of the case off but not the back. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. These are 2 media players. And then this is a sync hub that's made to go with those media players. So the sync hub basically sends out a signal at the end of the videos. The videos are exactly the same length. And when they get close to the end, it sends out a signal and basically restarts them. So, so you never see a flash of black on the screen when it loops. And I always make my videos so that the looping is seamless. There isn't really a beginning or an end to most, if not all of them. I feel like they're narrative, they tell a story, but it's not a story that's linear. There's not a beginning, there's not an end. It's just parts of the story stirred together. Part of the experience is coming up on this piece that you expect to be a still image, like a painting or a photograph, and then you realize it's moving and something's happening. I think part of that would be shattered by sound. And also I think, I don't think a lot of artists use sound very well. There's sort of there's this way that art video sounds. It's like, these noises and stuff that everybody uses somehow. That's what everybody ends up when they start trying to make art sound. And I find it kind of annoying. In the black and white early work and in this work, it's always been important to me to have the work be accessible to anybody. And it may not be accessible in the same way. They may not see the same things. They may not know the artist that's referenced or the artwork. I try to do pieces in a way that, that they get something out of it regardless. And I think that's I think that's a really good thing to strive for. I mean, I think a lot of artists may have a lot of thought in their, they may paint some subject or take photographs of something, that, and they've really thought through, and it's all, there's this whole backstory or, reason why they're doing it, but it's not evident, it's not communicated in the final piece. And I think it alienates people from the art world. I think it diminishes our value. I want them to enjoy it. I want them to think about it later. I want it to engage their brain.